All right, how you doing? Welcome to the C4 movement. I am the XD, and on this week, I'm of course joined with Glow, and we're going to talk about something that we both kind of landed on with a video I shared with her in Logic and Feelings. Um, Came across the interview with Charleston White, and he had a back and forth with the woman. He was talking about different things as far as men's logic and women's feelings. But first off, Glow, after seeing it, what did you think?
I feel like it's a conversation that's being had over and over, and it's not that it's. I don't think it's right or wrong. I think both all points can be taken into consideration. It's just always it feels like a catch all, like everyone's this way or everyone isn't this way, and it's kind of hard to watch it when I don't agree with everything about it.
Hmm. I think I think it's a failure on both sides to acknowledge the differences between the man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at how men move and think and how women move and think, it's going to be different. That's the joy of dealing with the opposite. And when we have these type of conversations, it's like we want the other side to move how we move and think how we think, but it's like that's too much control for anybody. So I don't think it should be something as far as should be like a consistent conversation. It should just be something that should be understood. Like
Right.
women move a certain way, men move a certain way. That's the joy of men dealing with the woman who's very petite and feminine, and women get the joy of dealing with a man who's very masculine and moving in the way he's supposed to move. So I feel like it's more of a thing to where you just acknowledge each other's differences and really celebrate it.
No, I agree. The celebrating the differences because it does feel a lot of times it's one or the other, and it always feels like it's a battle between the two instead of like you say embracing the two and making them blend together. I like that.
Which brings me to the next one, which this one I feel like I'm going to sound like I was with it, but I'm not. But facts and feelings. I can admit sometimes with certain conversations that we have when I share different videos with you and we discuss it, there is a clash there because you will speak more about how you feel about it. I'm dealing with the facts of what's going on, and vice versa. I can think about how I feel about it, and you can be dealing with the facts. But it's such a clash when we talk about this because we can say one thing about a subject, but how we feel about it determines how we view the whole thing.
True enough, and I guess I often think like, how can we state as facts if it's not this true for everyone, you know? But I guess whose facts are we talking about, right? But I agree, and I think both of them can still be consistent. I like you said it before, but facts, like you said, the feelings aren't facts, right? How you feel can change, but the fact is the fact. So I try to keep that in mind, even though you're right, we do clash because our viewpoints, how we were raised, what we think, how we feel, determines what we say.
Because I adopted this saying of F your feelings
Mm,
because your feelings doesn't trump facts. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean it's factual. Like you don't want to go to work today, but the fact is you have to go to work, or you're just going to be out in the street. And I feel like that's something that we do as people. Is like, especially today's world, which annoys the hell out of me because everybody's about their feelings and how something makes them feel. I mean, how many times you go to a comedy show, you hear a joke, and then the next day you hear that comic is on thin ice because he said something that hurt somebody's feelings.
hmm
It's like we're so soft in these days, especially with different people and communities feeling certain way about things that's said about them. It's like everybody's just like, rah, 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 I gotta, you offended me, you hurt my feelings. And now it's like hurting somebody's feelings is down there a hate crime now,
Right.
which is, I feel like it's too much.
I feel like I agree with you. There are some points where it feels like it's too much. I also wish that if someone can express their feelings to you and say, "This is how I feel," the other person should be allowed the same space and say, "I hear you, but I feel this way." To be able, because it almost always feels like one side has feelings and the other one doesn't. We know they do, but because they either don't have the chance to express it or don't know how to express it, it always feels one sided. So it's always like, "Woe is me, I feel the way," but they feel a way too. But how come we're not talking about it? Or you feel this way, but that's not what I meant. Like what I did made you feel a way, but I didn't mean it that way, or I didn't see that happening. I didn't see it making you feel that way. But if we don't express both sides, it's always gonna feel like one or the other.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it, because you have to understand, like, even when we have discussions, and I feel like I might say something that may be the opposite side of what you say, but it's
Hmm.
like I got to make sure that I don't hurt her feelings. So I say, look, no offense. I'm not trying to offend you. I make sure I go through that portion first, because I understand how, like, with today's world, you can say one thing or include the wrong word, and it can just kill somebody's feelings, especially in today's world where people go by pronouns that you may or may not understand. And you can be like, hey, um, her over there. And they say, well, I would go by they, I don't know that. But the fact that I said something, the fact is, I see a woman and I approach him as a woman a certain way, that affects that person's feelings if they go by something else.
Right.
But the fact is, how am I supposed to know that?
Right. And yeah, and I remember somebody saying that um, people who have different pronouns than what they present should wear badges. I said that's drawing attention to them. They don't necessarily want attention. They just want to be, approached correctly. And I sometimes liken it to like a student and a teacher. I go by Miss Gloria at work, but sometimes kids just go Gloria. I go, when we become the same age, there's a miss there. Y'all drop the miss because you think we cool. So for me, the title is important. But for the kids, they still see me as a teacher, but I'm just so cool. So do I get offended when they don't say miss? No. But will I correct them? Yes. So I don't know how that really relates to the pronouns, as far as, like you say, you don't want to say too much because it could be taken the wrong direction. You're not blatantly or disrespectfully coming out saying their pronouns, but you're going to use the opposite just because. That's not, what you're doing. You just don't know or didn't remember, or it's never to offend. And I do appreciate when you say that first. You preference it with, I don't want to offend, and I try to do the same, even though I'm not always like saying I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I often try not to make it personal. If we're about you, if we're talking about a topic, I try to keep it that way, or I use other examples besides you, because I never know how it may affect what I say or how you take it. So same deal. I really try to be conscious of that, unless it's an example that involves you directly. And I'm like, remember that time? But I try not to make it too personal, because we're not talking about us. We're talking about the situation. Even though I'm guilty, I take it personal, but I try not to make it personal, if that makes sense.
It does, and it goes with as far as communication and knowing that, being mindful of the different things that we talk about. Because one thing, when you have conversations with different people, you have to remember that they are different people.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's the same, nobody thinks the same, or move the same. So when we have these different conversations, for me personally, I like to listen to understand. And before, I would just listen to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has those moments, but I
Yeah.
like to listen to understand, because once you are able to understand somebody, you can move better with them. And that with the men and women relationships, I feel like there's more combat as far as our opinions and what we feel about different subjects and matters going on. Because if a man says this, a woman comes back, well, I feel like this, and it's not just like, well, I feel like, no, it's, I feel there's more passion in their response because they don't just feel it, they feel deeply about it. And with the whole red pill thing and the conversation about relationships, it's more of a wartime conversation now. I seen a video where they had a simple conversation saying, after a woman gives birth, they should probably, go ahead and perform a DNA test with, the father or supposed
Mhm.
father there. And these other women just blew up. They feel like
Mhm.
that's a waste of the country's time and assets and different things of that nature. And the men were like, it's just a cotton swab. Swab the baby, swab the man, see if it links up, and you're done. But women felt like it's not something that should be a mandatory. It shouldn't be something that should be used when the country has all these other problems. That's how they feel. Now men
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, let's do that so I can make sure I'm not signing something that ain't mine.
Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, my mind has changed on that topic a couple of times. Because I had a ex who said the same thing. He was like, we had planned to get married and didn't have kids. And he said when the baby's born, he wants a DNA test. And I got offended because I'm like, but we will be married at that point. Why would you think? He said, I'm not saying you cheated on me. He said, to be honest, I never thought I could have kids. So the DNA test was to prove to myself that this was my child.
Mm.
I didn't really believe him in that. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously I'm not married or with children, but that made me think like that was weird. But when you think about how many men get falsely accused of being a father and have to pay child support or on a birth certificate and their life is turned upside down, it could have been avoided with a simple cotton swab. Like that. To me, that's big. I would say yes, make it mandatory because if that is the father of the child, if you are confident that it is, then the truth will come out, right? To me, it's no problem. If the DNA test happens, it is the father, ta-da, we go on with our life. If it's taken and it's not, well, we got to do what's next. But I don't see it being harmful. And my understanding is free, right? And baby's firstborn is free versus waiting months or years later and paying for a DNA test. And now your feelings are involved because you've been involved in the child's life, for months or years and you're connected and, all those things happen. Do it from the jump. The jump.
And what you just talked about was the facts of that whole situation that gets overlooked because of people's feelings about the whole process. So,
Mhm.
and that brings me to men feelings and women feelings. Now, this is a particular area where this is where the conflict comes in. I had a conversation with someone and they were asking me about marriage. I told them flat out, it's like, yeah, I would love to get married again. I'm divorced. But my fear of getting married is one day someone saying, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And because of the laws that goes with marriage, and even when a prenup is signed, sometimes prenup can be overturned. Um, I don't want to lose everything I have. So my feelings about marriage versus the woman's feelings about marriage, oh, you shouldn't look at it that way. Well, going with facts and feelings right now. Dealing with the facts that most women are seeking divorce in this era, to where women are doing it proudly. Like I just read online that this basketball player in the WNBA, she met this guy who's on a podcast. She was so like struck over him that they end up dating. They got married. They were married over a year. They just filed for divorce.
Mm.
And I was like, damn,
Yeah.
everybody getting married and then they're getting divorced. So it makes men who, like myself, because if I get married again, based on everything I learned from my first marriage, I'm going to put my all into put more information, more knowledge, more experience into my relationship, into my marriage. And I don't want to do all that and it fails on me. That's my feelings as a man when it comes to marriage, when it comes to a relationship.
Yeah. Um, I agree. I do think that the man has that to lose, especially when we look at the man being a protector and provider, and the moment it doesn't work or they have to divorce, well, he's still protecting and providing because he's giving, some of his to her. Um, yeah, there are mixed emotions there because um, a lot of times I see women give their all to a marriage. They are sacrificing their career, their bodies to have children, their own happiness sometimes for the man, catering to them, depending on what kind of relationship they have, right? So that woman sometimes feels like I deserve what I'm taking with me. I'm leaving because it's not working out for me. Granted, those are feelings, right? But they're also facts. The facts are he's not pulling his weight in his marriage. Just because we got married and you're the protector and provider, is that all that you're doing? And no, we can't go tick for tack, right? We can't have a equal list of things that the man and woman does. But if the woman feels like she's holding most of it together, you know, then when she leaves, she feels like, well, pay me for my time. Now I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm just saying that's kind of what's been said. At the same time, you might have a husband who's done everything he could do. He's been over backwards. He's protecting, providing, and doing house chores and being there for everything above and beyond what some do. And he's begging her or pleading with her to stay. And she's like, no, I'm not happy. I'm out of here. So it's not the same. I can see every situation different, but I don't know. I wish people would take more time before they got married and actually did the work. So premarital counseling, perhaps, or I know people say go through a couple seasons with that person, right? Don't just go by feelings. Like, okay, I'm infatuated. I like them. I'm loving them the way I feel. Butterflies. Okay, wait till you have an argument. Do you still like them after that? We often talk about how people want the wedding, but not the marriage. So
Right.
my feelings are in this big day, and I forget that it takes actual work to be married. I'm leaving because if I wasn't prepared, right? I'm thinking it should all be butterflies and rainbows, and then the reality hits, and he's like, okay, it's not what I want. Um, Same but different. Parenthood. I've seen women have children and leave them with the father because they couldn't handle parenthood. That's scary to me. Like, that's really scary to be like, I want to be a mom. I want to be a mom. You get there and go, whoa, this is too much for me. I'm out of here. Right. So I can see that with marriage too. The feelings are real, but they aren't fact. But you can't tell somebody they can't feel that way. So I don't know.
It's like for me, because I'm in that situation where me and my ex-wife, we divorced. She remarried, but now I have custody of our youngest son,
Mhm.
and she pays child support. So yes, I'm one of the few men to get child support. Um, and with that came a lot of feelings as far as the relationship is concerned, because when you go through a divorce, and this is something you haven't been married or divorced, so I'll let you know, when you go for a man to go through a divorce, it's a total rebuild. It's the pressing of the reset button on everything. How you feel about yourself, how you feel about life, how you feel about your children, how you feel even about God.
Mhm.
Everything is a complete reset. And it's like a new opportunity where you have to wipe off the mirror and try to identify with the image in that mirror again, but not from the person that was, but who was going to be going forward.
Mhm.
And I experienced a whole lot, and people were looking at me like, oh, she was this and that. You need to just move on. It was like, you don't know the amount of emotional investment that was there, the amount of time that was there, because most people and most men that I know of, they do not have a mindset of, I'm going to get married and I'm going to get a divorce. They have a mindset, okay, we had a problem, let's fix it.
Mhm.
Once you get to that point, within after you get divorced and you rebuild yourself, your whole mind now is focused on growing. Everything's about building. For me personally, I changed my image, grew my hair back out, tattoos on all over my arms now. I'm I have a house now. I got weights in the basement. I'm working out more, changed my diet. I'm totally rebuilt myself from what I was to who I am now.
Yeah.
And my feelings was for me to grow, for me to be able to make it, I have to change me. The XD got to go from a whole different person from what he used to be. And once I got to this place now, I feel confident. I feel hungry to learn more and adapt more.
Mhm.
And my feelings is I don't want to lose this. But I loved what marriage was. About the information I have now, I feel like I'm better equipped for it. Because I tell you, I've always said this when I talked about myself. I didn't grow up seeing marriage. I grew up in a
Mhm.
single, parent household. The only marriages I seen was the Bundys from Married with Children, the Cosbys from the Cosby Show, the Banks from the Fresh Prince of Bel Air,
Mhm.
and the Simpsons from the Simpsons. Those were the examples of fatherhood of marriage that I seen,
Yeah.
which they were created on paper. They weren't created in reality. So, as for a man, it's like I want that wife. I want to be able to go to work, come home to somebody, and just build life. Let's take a trip. Let's go out to eat. Let's go take a walk. Different things you can do with a spouse. But that fear trumps everything when it comes to actually walking that line and getting married, because the fear of that person not having that same fight for the relationship that you may have. That's damn near kryptonite for a man. Now, I can't speak for it from a woman's point of view, but one thing that you did say that I would feel I was totally ignorant of understanding was the amount that it takes a toll on a woman as far as having children.
Mhm.
Because, and it's gonna sound completely ignorant and stupid. Cuss me out in the comments if you want. But from a male's from my point of view back then in my immaturity, I thought having a baby was like just taking a dump. And I'm openly admitting that. I'm thinking like, oh, you just laying there. Because when they say push,
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's like pushing out a turd or something. But it wasn't until I obtained more knowledge and understand the seriousness and the actual amount of risk that it has on a woman. It's like, wow, I didn't realize that. But that comes from putting my feelings aside as a man and understanding what a woman goes through. And that's something that's rare. We don't really put our feelings aside to understand the other side anymore. It's all about what I want, what I feel,
Mhm.
and that's where the conflict comes into place.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you say that, men's fear of being married and divorced, um, I wrote down women have a fear of being a single mom. Some women actually may want that, right? But imagine you have this whole plan, this whole life. Meet a guy, you guys fall in love, you want to get married, have a baby, but now you're divorced, or he doesn't marry you. Now you're a single mom. Where's your help? Where's your support? Sometimes when they divorce or break up, that father is gone. Sometimes we know that a lot of fathers are still there, but the fear and then the stigma of being a single mom, it's everywhere. Who wants that scarlet letter? You know what I mean? Like we wear it like a badge of honor. Some women wear it like a badge of honor now, but you have no option. If you're a single mom, you're a single mom. Now, if you get remarried or get back with the father, that's different. But you can't just stop working, stop moving because you don't have what you thought you was going to have, But the fear of being a single mom keeps some women from even having children,
Mhm.
Neither of my parents are alive. My siblings are living their own lives. I don't have a support system right now if I was to have children, right? So the husband I want to have, I joke about it, but he needs to have a family. I need some support there. You know what I mean? So my fear of being a single mom has stopped me from having children. No lie. I'm not past my child rearing ages yet, but it's a thought that crosses my mind. Will my husband be there? Will we make this thing work? Do we agree on how to raise our children? The support system, and then we're talking about birth, the actual birthing of this said child. You know what I mean? The risk involved, medically, health wise, mentally, emotionally, all those things change. And then the relationship part, we talk about that often. How now I had a baby, but I got to get back to my wifely duties. I got to get back to working, and everything else I have to do. Like there's so many moving parts. It's scary. It's like I can avoid all of that by not having any kids, and you can avoid losing half of what you have or more, right? Losing yourself, your identity, starting over by not even getting married. So I mean, that's a good conversation to have. There's fears on both sides. I wrote down here too. When women get married, sometimes I'm going by what I've heard. Get married, and that man has most of the cards. If he decides he doesn't want it anymore, he literally is pulling the rug from underneath her, right? If she decides this is my man, we're getting married, he's going to be my provider and my protection. I'm sometimes give up my job or work less hours. I'm now more in his, I don't want to say control, but under his leadership, right? So whatever he decides to do, I'm moving with him. And if he decides, I don't want it no more, I'm literally stuck. Yes, that man may lose everything if he, has to give half of it or whatever. But if he doesn't, he has enough to rebuild himself. She has to start over too. I wrote down too, when a woman cuts her hair, you ever heard that? When a woman cuts her hair or changes her hair, it means it's over. Women sometimes reinvent themselves as well. Or the statement always is, how come she had a glow up after the breakup? You've seen that before. Women, she ain't dressed like that when she's with me. Now that we broken up, she dolled up because she's moving on. She's doing something different. She's attracting the next person for her. She go back to school sometimes. She gets another degree. She starts working more. She changes things about herself to market to the next person, right? So I was giggling to myself when you said that about you, when, as a divorcee and going through the emotions, not emotions, going through the procedures of getting back to yourself, getting back to a self that you, where you are, because you can't, the old you, but the new you. I'm like, we all do that in a different way, and not necessarily from divorce, this relationship sometimes, right? It didn't work out. Maybe we move cities. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm out of the area. I'm trying new things. But I do wish we had more conversations like that. Expressing the fears and concerns you have before you do it and addressing them, right? Before you get married to somebody, say, hey, I'm scared. I'm worried about this, and this. What you said before, sometimes men don't express themselves to the woman, for whatever reason. He's afraid she might use it against him, or she won't listen to him, or whatever case may be. But those convos have to be had, because imagine if y'all don't have the conversations about your concerns and worries. I feel like them same concerns and worries are going to come right back and bite y'all, because you didn't discuss it.
That's because you go into a whole different field, and that field is the women's leadership and men leadership. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I've learned, one thing I want to apply in my new relationship, if I ever get into one, as far as my leadership as a man, I want to establish strong communication. And that means knowing what we're doing as the relationship going, knowing what we're getting into, my expectations of her and her expectation of me. I want those all on the table. That way we can move accordingly with one another. Because one of the things that as a man that I feel is very important to me is I want respect. Mm-hmm. And wanting respect, that means I have to give respect. And to properly give the respect that my partner is going to need, I need to have a full understanding of how they want to be respected. Because one of the problems that I had in my immature state of mind is, since I'm the husband or since I'm the man, you got to do what I want you to do. Mm-hmm. Now, I mentioned on the TV shows that I was influenced by, thinking of my painting of what marriage was. And it was like, my whole vibe was, if I go to work for 10, 12 hours a day, when I come home, my wife's supposed to be sexually ready for me.
Mhm.
Not thinking about she's been here all day with kids. If she's working, she's been at work too. There's a certain amount of respect and leadership a man has to have for his household that I would like to obtain, and that can only be properly done with real communication. So the hard questions is like hard questions that are embarrassing to ask. You ask those questions before you get married. You get to know that person from who they are and what they're looking for. Because one thing that I came across our old conversation we had about how, I think I sent you about the man who lost his job,
Right.
and he didn't tell his girlfriend. Instead of no, he lost his scholarship,
Right.
lost his football scholarship, didn't tell his girlfriend. So instead, he just went to start working, and he didn't come out right out and tell her like, "Hey, I lost my job because I did such and such. I lost my scholarship because I didn't do such and such. So I just went out and got a job." And she got upset that he didn't come talk to her. As a man, we are shown that once we reveal any type of weakness in our armor to our women, it gets used against us, and our women look at us in a different light. So as a leader, I don't fall down and go talk about it. I fall down, get up, and go do something about it. And I feel like that's what he did in that particular situation. As a man, we don't have room to communicate all of our feelings, because sometimes our feelings get used against us. It makes us feel weak. Because sometimes, yeah, I can sit there, and we even had it. I admitted this to you before. We can be talking about something. It gets to a point where it's like, okay, I'm tired of talking about it. Let's do it. Let's put some action instead of just talking about it. But then I'm learning that for women, sometimes talking about it gives them a certain release and certain vulnerability and knowledge to be able to do the next step. For men, and from my own personal experience, it can be annoying. But I understand, like, if I want to dwell with a woman, I'm gonna have to get that communication going.
Yeah, and on the same wavelength, because women do talk more. um, we have to understand that our men may not talk as much as we do. And him not talking doesn't mean he doesn't care or he doesn't have feelings. It's just that he processes things differently, which is another key part that I wish we could talk about more. Learn your person, but also learn. I don't want to say species, but learn about men, learn about women, learn about the other side. Because when you're always going based on yours, I'm guilty. I expect sometimes my person to think like I think. If I'm a big feeler, I'm a big, feelings matter kind of person. Tell me how your day went. Tell me how you feeling. I'm I'm open to that. I want to hear it. And they're like, oh, it was good. What made it good? I want to know more. But um I have to respect it. If he says it's good, it's good. You know, there have been times though, and I don't know where it came from, but I try it every now and then. If I say, how you doing? I'm good. My next statement is, if you weren't good, would you tell me? Right? Because now I'm not asking you to tell me right now because maybe it's not the time, but I'm asking, would you if there was? I have got yeses and nos. So it depends. If you're not good, would you tell me? Yeah, I'll tell you. If you're not good, would you tell me? Probably not. Like you say, I'm a man. I'm not gonna tell you. No, you'll never know. And I have to respect that, right? I can't. I could dig, right? You were like, tell me, but that might not get me anywhere, right?
So
Um,
that makes me ask a question though.
mhm.
Based on that information, when they said, "Would you tell me?" Yes or no? Do you feel some type of way when they say no?
um, yes. Honestly, my first reaction is they don't trust me, and the feelings, right? If
Mhm.
you want me to trust you, how come you don't trust me? But then I have to think about what I always say: people operate from their experience. So if his experience is he can't trust a woman, he's not gonna trust me either. I think I'm special, but that's it doesn't translate. So my feelings are that he doesn't trust me, he doesn't open up to me. How are we gonna go forward if he can't even tell me that something's wrong? That's my first initial thought.
Mhm.
Several times though, it always opens up because I didn't press it, right? If he says
Mhm.
no, I'm not gonna express myself to you, I'm not gonna tell you how I feel, but I still leave it open. Sometimes they've come back and said, I'm feeling some kind of way. And I'm like, oh, we in there, But because I didn't press it, I could have been like, tell me now. But yes, I feel a way about it.
Only reason I would ask is sometimes, like I said before, when we don't say anything in our minds, it's our way of protecting.
Yeah.
Because and that because sometimes that blows my mind when I hear women talk about they want a man that can be a provider and be a protector. But then it's like you want that, but do you understand what comes with that? Because if I'm a provider, I'm a protector. That means I have to put things in a lane that I understand, that where I can function and be what I'm supposed to be in that lane.
Mm-hmm.
Because people be like, "Oh, that's controlling." It's not controlling. It's you got to set standards. You got to set things in place to be able to move in your abilities. And sometimes that gets mistaken as control. That's why I said, let me get that communication going between me and my spouse, me and that woman. That way we have an understanding how our family move, how our relationship move. Because I tell people, I said it to you before, the online conversations are so good. But then it's got people have to understand that just because a man said this, that doesn't mean you have to do it too, because you need to move according to your relationship with your partner, not based on something that somebody else said, because they're talking coming from their experience or coming from their mindset of something that you can't even really relate to. It just said it sounded like it made sense to you. You took it as gospel.
Yeah. Um, with men or some men keeping to themselves, not telling the woman there's an issue, he's gonna solve it himself. Um, we should understand that's how they operate, that's how they move, it's how they've been moving, it's how they are used to doing things. On the same token, though, I wish men would understand that sometimes by not telling us, we overthink, we worry warts, we want to help, we want to be your help meet, and we can't help if we don't know what's going on. Now, granted, you making that face, but granted, it's not always. That's a communication piece, right? How
Right.
we operate is different, and if you keeping your stuff in to protect me is how you operate. It's how you always done it. It works for you. But if I'm used to having understanding, tell me what the plan is so I can be aboard, and you're like, just trust me, I need to know what I'm trusting, though. So knowing both sides, knowing that your woman might overthink because you're not telling her nothing, you're giving her the bare minimum. And no, you might not have to give her play by play every single notion, but know your woman. Know if that's what she needs or wants, then she also needs to work with herself to say, I don't need every detail, right? I have to work with that, saying, all right, do I trust him or not? Because if I trust him, then I'm gonna follow. And if he respects me, talk about respect too, respects me, he will know that she needs a little bit more information than what I've given her. She needs something so she's not worried, so she can trust me, so she will continue to follow me. I'm giving her just enough, and that still sounds bad because they call it breadcrumbing, right? Giving her just enough. But sometimes if you tell the plan, it could ruin it, right? Or leadership, if she's used to being in charge, she might try to take over your plan, right? So you like, I'm not telling you nothing because this is my plan, I got it. But I think she still needs to know something enough that she's like, all right, I trust you, I'm listening, I'm following, because I know this part now.
And that all that comes from the communication prior to the I do's, and hopefully prior to the children being born. That way, when those things are obtained, the marriage, the children, and problems happen within the relationship, there's a proper understanding of the man and the woman within the relationship.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about male leadership, I was thinking about how women lead, and I'm speaking for myself. I try to lead by example. I don't always try to tell you what to do. You know, I say you, but try to tell people what to do. I try to do it and let them see that I'm doing it. You know, if I want you to treat me a certain way, I'm going to treat you that way. And I know sometimes it might not translate because I'm not telling it to you. I'm showing it to you. Does that make a difference in leadership by telling versus showing?
It depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I come from with my learning of dealing with relationships and dealing with people, that everybody's not the same. Some people like to be told, some people like to be shown, some
Mm-hmm.
people like to be walked into something, other people like to be, okay, just give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways that people can receive something. So it's like it's really hard to answer that based on the various outcomes from different people.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about woman leadership though? Are we talking like relationship leadership or in general?
When it comes to working, women leadership gets on my nerves. And I say that because I've worked with under some women. I was a security guard at a retail store. No, that's a retail store, not to get flagged by any company.
Of course.
And I was a security guard, and I had a woman supervisor. Now, as a security guard, and this was when security guards were hands-on. So if you steal, we can go hands-on with you. She would come to work wearing like a skirt. And I would think, how are you going to catch anybody wearing a skirt? Because if they go hands-on, your skirt flies all up, and it's going to be a whole problem. So, and she would do this thing to where she was always, yeah, we're going to get them. We're going to put them down. And I'm thinking like, you can't even do anything. So it's like if you're in the group and the skinny kid that doesn't have any muscles at all talking about he's going to beat somebody up. And it's like, dude, just relax. You ain't about to play. So she was all about talking really big. So she'd be scared and nervous before an apprehension would happen. We get them in the office, handcuff them to the little seat, whatever. Now she's talking bad and talking smart to him. And I'm like, chill out. No. So when I worked with her, I was kind of frustrated because of her attitude and how she presented herself. So one day she sits on the table, I'm working. She's like, Evan, do you have a problem with me because I'm a woman? And I was like, at this time, I'm trying to keep my job. I'm like, no, I got a problem with you. And it was like, it was so offensive to me because it was like, my problem is you talk big, but you can't do anything. And then if I'm here, you're going to rely on me to do everything, but I can't rely on you. So when I say I have a problem working with women, that's the problem I have, where the expectation of a man is so high for me, especially when it comes to a physical job versus working with a woman who can't be that physical. And put like this. We're going to a we're going to a wrestling match. I come out there, I got on my boots, got on my wrestling gear, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And you come out there in high heels, a skirt, talking about I'm ready. You turn into the one I have to protect instead of the one I can rely on.
Right.
That's where I have my issues. And working with women, because I did that job for like 14 years.
Oh, wow.
So I understand that not all situations of working with women are going to be similar to that, but that was the one situation I had where it just annoyed the hell out of me.
I get it. Well, I was a woman in leadership for a while, but actually, I moved up, so I was promoted, so I was able to see working in the school system. So being able to see different leadership styles and everything, and the same like you say, they're not all the same. Um, but what I noted between me and my male counterparts, I paid attention to detail differently than they did.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if it's because I was a woman or not, but me versus the men I worked with, they miss details. And details such as security measures, like um, you said about being security, but thinking about where the kids going to stand, where they're going to line up at, how we're going to make sure we have all the kids together. You know what I mean? What happens if what procedures are we going to do if this, or this happens? My overthinking that played a part, but I was able to put together a plan that when I presented it, they were like, "Oh, we didn't think about that." And it's so frustrating because it's like leave women to do it because we got it, especially when it comes to kids. I don't know, maybe that's just a different thing too. But I wrote down here too, I have used my feelings in leadership to include everybody.
Mm.
I've got staff with different needs and different wants, and the feelings part of me is saying, well, I want everyone to be included. I want everyone to feel heard. So my leadership style was an open concept, was a everybody has a say so, where some of the men that I worked with were kind of like my way or the highway. Now, sometimes that works. I'm not going to deny it, okay? Because sometimes when you bring feelings into it, now everyone has an opinion. Now it's jumbled up. It's a soup, right? Um, but maybe it's a woman thing. We're kind of used to feelings, and so able to manage them, but also knowing the stop space, right? Okay, feelings are cool here, but not over here. When I talk about kids and what I will and won't accept when it comes to how we treat our students, feelings for me were out the window. I don't care how you as an adult feel when this child feels unsafe.
Mm.
I don't care. That child is more important at this moment because you're an adult. You take care of yourself. The child, not. They're depending on us. So for me, my leadership, when I notice my leadership versus someone else's, um, I don't know. That was me. So, but same, often say that women who have leadership at work can't always take leadership at home. I take the coat off, baby. I don't have to lead at home. I don't have to if I have a man who can lead, right? I mean, I've seen women who are with men who don't lead, or at least don't lead to their standards, and they're leading at home. But it's like, and then I hear the conversation. One lady, actually, one of my old bosses, she had a divorce party, and she's explaining, right? She's explaining to us why she divorced him, and part of it was because she felt she had to mother him. She felt she had to tell him to wash his clothes, to pick up stuff, to pick the kids up. She had to do all scheduling for um, soccer practice and things. Part of me wanted to be like, is it because you want to, or because he can't? You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, are you enabling him? Are you just taking it from him because you think you can do it better? Has he even tried to do those things? So she felt like she was the boss at home and at work, and she didn't want that. I get it, but you probably picked a man who's not a leader, or you didn't allow him to lead, right?
And not knowing that full situation of that, based on the penny worth of information you gave,
Mm-hmm.
I would say if he didn't do all that, why weren't you encouraging him as a wife to do it?
Exactly.
You mentioned the word help me. That's the role of a help me. That's the role. That's a way a woman can be a leader within the household is helping that man step up to where he's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, in reality, that's what men and women do for each other when they're actually in a real committed relationship that's trying to go further. I'm helping you become better at what you need to be, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where it all takes about understanding communication. I always feel like when you look at if you really look at people who get divorced and you hear their stories, you can pick out the selfishness, you can pick out the ego, you can pick out the anger, and you can just look at it and be like, you know what? Okay, that just requires some counseling. That just required a vacation. That just required a moment alone. a lot of people quit too early when it comes to relationships, and a lot of stuff that happens. And this is part of my leadership that I said I wanted to apply for my relationship. Whenever there's a problem that gets addressed and we work it out, that to me was a reset button, because now I need to reset the way I think and reset I move to make things better within my household. So what that's going to do is I have the understanding from you. I have the understanding, you have the understanding from me, have an understanding of the situation. Now I move different. You move different. Now we move different and we go for better versus you take me off, I take you off, I'm done.
Right.
Because, like I said, we know when we know better, we do better. But the thing is, that's also a choice, because we can, a man and woman can sit and talk about whatever the issue was or the problem was, and they can be like, you know what, I don't want to do that. And that's where you have the fall of a lot of relationships.
That's true. And I still hold to the notion that it's going to take time because we didn't become who we are overnight. So to get better, it also takes time. So when you say you have a conversation with your partner, use your person, your spouse, and you come to agreement, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. Okay, we got a better way to do that, and you guys both agree. Then it happens again. Like, to me, there's still space to grow because I'm still learning to do it better.
Right.
If I'm conscious about it and says, oh, I'm so sorry, I did it again. My example to you before was I used to hang up on an ex. Whenever he made me upset, I just hang up the phone. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. If he was listening to me, I'm not listening to him. Yes, that was terrible. That was bad, but it worked for me because I could wait 10, 20 minutes. He called right back and apologized. Even if I was wrong. And I know that's toxic. Hear me out. I was younger, okay? But I made that choice to do that. And one day he said, listen, we're not going to do that no more. Either talk to me or we're going to end this thing completely. I was taken aback because, first of all, he never stood up to me like that. So I'm just like, okay, now. He put his foot down. He said, we're not doing that no more. Don't hang up on me. You want me to do it to you. I started to argue with him about it. He hung up on me. When I tell you, I was upset. Like, excuse me? But I had to taste my own medicine. I had a chance to see, that didn't feel good. I didn't like that, and we talked and I got it together. I did hang up on him again after that. But again, it was, I know it was out. Stop. I did again, but I called him right back and said, I apologize. I'm figuring this thing out. You know what I mean? What can I do differently? What can I say? Let you know that I'm upset. You know what I mean? As opposed to just hanging up. Because if I don't know what to say, I was like, I'll show you. But again, I told you before too, how people do what works for them. I could hang up on him and he'd call me back. And I knew that. Why would I stop doing it if I knew it worked for me? Right? Until it didn't.
The selfishness, though, is why would I stop when I know if it worked for me? Forget what the shock it was for him, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
So,
but that's what I was saying, though. Remember what I said about like if a woman was talking to you a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. And you were like, I don't like how she talks to me. I said, but she's used to doing it. She's used to doing that to other men, and it works for her. Remember I said that? And that's exactly what I meant. It works for her. So why would she stop doing that? Unless you tell her that, hey, I don't like that. And if she goes, oh, my bad, I didn't realize it, or my bad, oh, he not one of them I can talk to like that, or she's going to move around because she's going to keep doing it. So for me, it was I'm doing it, it works for me until it didn't.
Cause that reminds me, back when I was married, whenever I had a problem, when me and my ex-wife have a problem, and she voices her feelings, I'd be like, well, I just don't understand. And she'd be like, well, you'll never understand nothing. But my thing was, I'm communicating. You're telling me how you feel about something. I'm communicating. I don't understand, or I don't see how I'm doing that.
Yeah.
We didn't have the conversation. So that led to a lot of problems, which goes for what I'm saying about you got to have an openness and willingness to actually talk things out and listen to the other person and receive the other person to be able to move forward. You hanging up was cutting communication. It's like basically saying, Oh, you feel that way? Done. Push you aside.
Mm-hmm.
Him calling back, I kind of smirk because what we see online now, calling it, oh, you a simp. You should have left her sitting there to rethink her issues, hanging up on you like that. But those type of actions, because one thing you did say that that's back then, and a lot of people make moves back then. There's a lot of things I used to do and the ways I used to think I don't think anymore.
Right.
And that growth happens when you allow change. A lot of people don't allow change to happen. They want to stay with their same thinking, same mindset, and then wonder why things go the way that they go.
Mm-hmm. What you said though about that he should have left me sitting with that thought process. The flip side, women will say on there, or men who are pandering, right? They'll be like, if he doesn't call you back, he doesn't care about you. I'm just saying, and it's not right. I'm just saying, you see how that toxicity can keep going because there's somebody on either side telling both sides they're right. Let her sit in it. If he don't call you back, he ain't the one. You
Yeah,
know.
I know a lot of online people would say that, and I totally don't agree with that because I feel like you disrespected him, so you should be the one to go to him and seek that forgiveness for the disrespect versus baby come back type of action he portrayed. But like I said, it was we all grow. And it's funny, the older you get, the more you can look back at your past you and you can say, like, wow, it makes you feel better that you've grown from so much, especially the mindsets that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Glow for tuning in this week from the C4 Movement. Ask you guys to please subscribe to the C4 Movement on YouTube, like, share, and comment. Let's have a conversation. What can we do with our logic and feelings between men and women these days? I'm the XD. This is Glow. I'll catch you guys next time.